Today, 9th of September 2024, Barbara and I of Spoken Injustice have made our way to the Tower of London, where this year's International Falsely Accused Day has taken place at 2 p.m. Another peaceful demonstration took place simultaneously in Liverpool, outside the HMP Liverpool. We were delighted to attend and support this event for the second consecutive year. Falsely Accused Day is observed annually on the 9th of September, marking the birthday of Simon Waugh, a former school teacher and BBC radio broadcaster. Waugh was accused of historical child abuse related to his teaching career, but was later acquitted. On the 24th of February 2020, a BBC article reported how the broadcaster revealed the week before his death how dying of cancer will not be as bad as being falsely accused of child sex abuse. Falsely Accused Day, which began in the UK in 2020, is a peaceful demonstration. Each year, individuals who have faced false accusations, along with their friends, families and supporters, come together for this peaceful protest to raise awareness about the issue of false accusations and wrongful convictions, their devastating impact on those falsely accused and their families, emphasizing the importance of upholding fundamental principles such as the presumption of innocence, as well as due process in legal proceedings, with focus on full disclosure of all relevant facts that show both sides of the story. Falsely Accused Day has since expanded beyond national borders to become a truly international event, and it is now known as International Falsely Accused Day. Margaret Gardner, director of the False Allegations Support Organization, FASO, highlighted in her opening speech how the event's global reach continues to grow.
But it's not Falsely Accused Day, it's International Falsely Accused. And the international countries that have joined in with FAD to make it IFAD are Argentina, Australia, Bermuda, Bulgaria, Canada, Chile, Ireland, Mexico, South Africa, Netherlands, France, Spain, Poland, India, Italy, Uruguay and the USA.
Margaret Gardner also discussed the profound effects of false accusations, emphasizing that they are a family affair, affecting not only the individuals who are wrongly accused, but also their loved ones.
And normally, I talk about the men and women in prison that are falsely accused. But this time, I'm going to talk about the families of those men who support them. And of course, we've got one famous family here, Brian Buckle's family. They did one heck of a lot to manage to get the solicitors and barristers to take his case on, and fortunately, but it's not fortunate, but because of the hard work of everybody, he was then released eventually. But they're not the only ones. We've got plenty of more families, but unfortunately they have no money. We don't, the falsely accused, do not get government money to try and clear our beloved's name. I am the wife, I'm the widow of somebody who was falsely accused. Now what happens with family? Families are equally in stress, they're equally upset, and especially if they've got children under 16, the partner is always told, not always, mainly told, if you have anything to do and keep in contact with your partner in prison, then we will take the children from you. Now if you remember, or if you think, ladies and gentlemen and children and family and friends are ostracised in the community. It's one heck of a thing to happen. They're ostracised, and if parent that's left at home is working, it's very difficult for them to work and look after the children. The prime carer could be in hospital. The individuals could have disabled family, disabled partners, and because the falsely accused has gone to prison, they have taken their carer away. That's only some part of it. When they're walking down the street, when they're in the shops, they can be ostracised by the neighbours, by the shopkeepers. And their children, when they're in school, can not only be in the same classroom as a child of the accuser, they then have to sit with that child in the same class, and neither of the children are protected from the other. And some children, usually teenagers, either self-harm, but one child that I'm aware of and have first-hand knowledge of was just found in time because he was going to hang himself, and he was just found in time, fortunately, and he now is training to be a solicitor, and he wants to pay back and try and to change the system. And so we need people to come forward and support the falsely accused. We must make the awareness of it. I mean, the IPP system is where families have really got together and managed to get that up to Parliament. The Gemba, who are all families, have managed to get the law looked at and found to be wrong, but they're still not dealing with the law as they should. So this is all family power, and that's what we've got here today, family power. They want everybody that can do to back us, to just make us, tell Parliament that we are falsely accused. There is such things as false allegations, but this is what we need to change the law, to get the law on a proper level, so that evidence is used, that both sides are listened to. If we keep doing this, and especially internationally, something will change, because we need it to change.
Next to speak was Brian Buckle, who last year shared the incredible news that his conviction had been overturned by the Court of Appeal, with a subsequent retrial in which a full jury of 12 men and women found him unanimously not guilty. He returned today to recount his story, which moved us all to tears once again. No matter how many times you hear it, the impact remains just as powerful.
I was wrongfully convicted of a sexual crime that related back to 1992. It all started in 2015, where I was on bail for just over 2 years while the police were doing a very, very, very poor police investigation, not interested in any evidence that I had to prove that it never happened. In 2017, May 2017, I went to court for a 5-day trial, which only lasted 3.5 days. I was found guilty on all 16 charges and sentenced to 33 years in prison. I had to serve the whole 15 years with parole due in 7 years, and I would never get parole because I was maintaining my innocence. So I would have had to serve my 15 years, and I would have served my 15 years, because at the end of the day, who's going to admit to a crime that they haven't done? Even though the justice system, even though the justice system think that you're a guilty man because you've been found guilty in court. So 2017, I was sent to a prison called Park in Bridgend, which is my local prison. I spent 14 months there, maintaining my innocence, trying to fight the system, and in that time trying to find a barrister to look at my appeal. My wife managed to find a barrister called Mr. Vullo from London, and he looked at my case. Originally he said no, there's no grounds because the judge had done all the summing up correctly, so there was no grounds. But my wife said no, that's not happening. My wife said, well, I'll do it with you or without you. So he gave my wife some pointers and my family some pointers, which was one, to find a private investigator, which Mr. Merritt is in the crowd there. We've done a fantastic job. And Mike Kelly, who's just behind him, as you can see. And they went out and found exactly what the truth was. What the police didn't do and should have done, part of my investigation. The other one was part of the DNA. Obviously it's all online, but I'm not going to go into all that. I then got COVID. I was in intensive care for 15 days. I was given the 50-50 chance of living, and managed to get through that. That was Christmas 2020. Christmas 2021, I had a letter from the first judge, because we put our appeal in, and I was sitting in the cell and I thought yes, and it was a refusal from the first judge to say, actually, you've got no grounds for an appeal. Two grounds that they refused it were based on what the prosecution said, nothing to do with any of our evidence, because she never even read, which was Judge O'Farrell, she never even read our appeal documentation. So that was a kick in the teeth just on that. So I'm still sitting in the cell, an innocent man, serving my time. 9 months later, I get a listing come through from the appeal courts to sit with 3 judges in the High Courts to see if we can get an appeal. This is now with the same documentation that the first judge had back in 2021. I go to the appeal court at 11 o'clock through a video link, and 12 o'clock I'm instant released from prison of all charges. The 3 judges actually said that I was wrongfully convicted. The judge should have stopped the case. My barrister should have put a half-time submission in and should have got the case stopped at the time. And the prosecution lady was present and stood up and apologised to the 3 judges for getting it so wrong and admitting how embarrassing it was that they got it so wrong. So did my first barrister and even the judge. So I'm standing there thinking, right, okay, what's going on? So the clerk of the court stood up and said, Mr. Buckle, you're going home. I go, so I'm released from prison, and the next thing, I'm back up for a retrial in 2023. So I have to go through the same thing, exactly the same thing all over again, 16 charges. But this time I've got Mr. Vullo, and obviously the work that Mr. Merritt done, and Mike Kelly, and my forensics. We went back to court in May, exactly the same day as what I did in 2017. May the 2nd, 2017 is when I went to court originally, and my retrial was the 2nd of May 2023, sorry. And within 10 minutes of Mr. Vullo challenging the complainant, she stood in the stand and admitted that it wasn't even me. 10 minutes into the trial, she said, I didn't even know Brian at that time. I'm sitting there thinking, right, hold on a minute, it's all over. But no, I had to go through a 3-week trial to get it all out, all the lies, to prove everything that I'd been set up and lied. On the Friday of the 3rd week, the jury came back with a unanimous decision, not guilty, and I'm here today to tell the story.
We were appalled to learn that Brian has been denied the compensation for his wrongful conviction.
We applied for compensation, but we did it ourselves. So this year, on the 5th of June, I had a letter back from the Ministry of Justice, and this is the actual letter from the Ministry of Justice. And what they say is, I have concluded that you do not meet the statutory test for compensation set out in section 133 of the Criminal Justice Act 1988. However, I do not consider that the effect of the newly discovered fact in your case demonstrates beyond reasonable doubt that you did not commit the offences for which you were convicted. So that's why they're not paying me. But then on the next paragraph, they turn around and they say, you are presumed to be and remain innocent of the charges brought against you.
Shame, shame, shame.
So my question is to the Ministry of Justice and to Keir Starmer, which one is it? Am I still guilty or am I innocent? Are 3 High Court judges wrong? Are 12 jury who found me innocent after hearing the truth wrong? And how many lives that Keir Starmer is saying, believe the victim, has he created since that time? Of all the families that are here and all the families that are suffering and all the people who are in prison that are innocent, that he has created. Why does he not answer that question? So, at this time, my barrister, Mr. Vullo, is fighting for us with the compensation and is trying to get a meeting with the new Justice Secretary. But obviously the letter says we can't appeal this letter for the compensation. And this C. Timms, who's done the investigation, he's just a pen pusher that's in an office that knows nothing about my case whatsoever. So he's made a decision based on what the prosecution have told him, because that's what's in my letter. So nothing to do with my case. So everything we've been through, they're saying that I'm still guilty and that's why they're not paying me, because I could have still done it. So I know what we want. I'm not interested in the compo. I just want what I've paid to fight and get me out. So that's my story very briefly, and thank you very much, and I'll pass you to the next person.
The next speaker was Brian Hudson from FACT, falsely accused carers and teachers and other professionals. He highlighted 25 facts, one for each year the organisation FACT has been in existence.
Falsely accused carers and teachers doesn't just do falsely accused carers and teachers, it does anyone. We added and other professionals. In fact, we look after people, anyone who's in any profession and who comes into contact with the law regarding a false allegation. Recently, that's took on safeguarding. Safeguarding was something that we hope would help to stop future false allegations so that we did not have the historic ones to deal with. Unfortunately, it's creating a lot more at the moment because it's being enforced in a very overzealous way, and a lot of people are being suspended. And the main thing is that they're left alone and they're isolated, and that's when they find us and are grateful. In fact, at its origins, back in 1999, when lots of other people were being scooped up in a net that was cast to collect anyone who was being abused. The law was changed and it allowed the justice system to prosecute quite easily. My own trial then was a test case. and they recruited the media, enabled to influence juries in order to bring about decisions that was totally incorrect. So despite submissions and despite loads of evidence, we still carry on with the justice system that continues to persecute and collect false allegations. So today, I want to say this. Unlike the presenters on TV and the Ministry of Justice, false accusations, they're not a myth and they're not rare. They're actually in their hundreds. And we, at fact, 25 years, and we're getting cases every day of the week. So what I've done is I've got 25 facts I'm going to mention to you all this morning, one for every year that we've been in existence. As I should say, they're not in any particular order. Men are the main target. Fact number 4, the jury system is not perfect to decide on these cases, and it suffers from bias and prejudice. Fact number 5, police are instructed to believe all, no matter how outrageous. Number 6, evidence collected tends to be for the prosecution purposes. Evidence that supports the accused is often overlooked, hidden or undisclosed. Fact number 7, individuals accused are treated as guilty from the onset. From the first interview, they're treated as guilty. Fact 8, all investigations, well, they're not fully investigations, but they're one-sided. Fact 9, the so-called safeguard of the appeal system is a complete farce. It does not work. Fact number 11, those accused, even when acquitted, are affected by trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. They never live a life normal again. Once this has happened to you, you live a different life. Your sense of self is completely destroyed. Your brain's rewired. You find the way to live, we find the way to cope, but you're not the person you was before. It's impossible to be that person. Fact number 12, the teaching profession loses perfectly good and honest teachers every year because there's no support for them following an accusation. What I mean is, many leave, even though they found there's no further action. What it's done to them is enough, and they leave. Number 14, allegations which are false or made for one, financial gain. It can be revenge in a dispute, and it can also be for family court reasons. I think we have about 18 reasons and 18 backroom stories why false allegations are made. Now I'm on fact number 15. These accusations arise from false and extracted and flawed and wrong memories, which we'll hear about from Kevin. Fact number 16. Those who are wrongly convicted and imprisoned, even when occasionally exonerated by the appeal court, have no recourse for compensation, while those who accuse them are protected and often allowed to keep the money they've received in compensation. There's no presumption of innocence any longer. 20. The cornerstone, this follows on, doesn't it, of British justice, that one is innocent until proven guilty, has been abolished or abandoned. Media reporting and their thirst for dark stories has panicked the public into thinking that round every corner lurks a predator. 22. Andrew Malkinson, the flawed Midland inquiry, the accusations of Carl Beach, the witch hunt placed on Cliff Richards, Paul Gambaccini, Brian Buttle, are just a tip of an iceberg. 23. Unless action is taken, hundreds more will be falsely accused and convicted. 24. Our website at Fact on false accusation has between 6,000 and 7,000 hits each and every month, and that's kept up in that way for many years. Tomorrow there'll be another falsely accused case. We know that for sure. When I get back tonight, there will be emails or a phone call about somebody who's been wrongly accused. What we need is a justice system to acknowledge it. We need to bring balance back to it. we need to have some other way to try these cases other than prejudicial. When you walk into a court, it's a known fact now that you were guilty. You have to prove your innocence, and it's not the other way around. So ladies and gentlemen, thanks for attending today. Thank you, Brian, and in fact we'll carry on for another 25 years if we need to.
Kevin Felstead joined the peaceful demonstration again this year, providing an update on the book he told us last year he was planning on writing. The book has materialized as promised. He also told us about another book he's writing about Brian Buckle.
Before I do my talk, which is going to be a bit different than the others because they've covered everything I would speak about, I'd just like to go back to Brian's case. We're writing a book about his case. I've seen the paperwork, and in my opinion, when the prosecution sought retrial with no evidence, after apologising, after the defence barrister apologised to court, after the judge had apologised to court, they knowingly prosecuted an innocent man. Andrew Malkinson was mentioned. He didn't go back to retrial, but in his case, they knew he was innocent, but they went ahead with it anyway. And they ran the same old bandwagon, except it didn't work, because after Stephen Vullo case, he said, humorously in my opinion, there's a new sheriff in town. And they got the outcome they wanted. That book, I spoke to Brian this morning, or yesterday, needs to be framed in terms of Operation U-Tree, Operation Midland, the stuff that was mentioned early on about the Keir Starmer, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and this believe the victim nonsense, because it's overturned criminal law. I'm a historian of crime, so I can say it confidently, of 250 years, whereby you were a complainant at the time of complaint. You were not a victim. You became a victim when somebody was convicted. That's what I want to talk about. It's called Memory and Injustice, Wrongful Accusations in the United Kingdom. On the front cover of this book is Andrew Malkinson, and this is a cartoon from Peter Brook from the Times. I had to pay for it. I've got 7 years copyright on it, and he says, "What took you so long?" He says, "Justice is blind." Now there's a website on there, and I'll throw that away now. If you go on that website, you'll find a recent academic paper by two scholars from Portsmouth, one of whom is a former criminal barrister at the bar for about 30 years. And what she said, or what they've argued, is that if we're looking at historic sex allegations, 23% probably are historic. That's based on over 1 year since the allegation was made. Now, the alarming thing about this paper, and it should ring alarm bells with everybody, is that in terms of false memories, everybody believes this theory that the mind can be so traumatised that it can repress things and block them out for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years even now. And that includes judges, the whole of the judiciary, defence barristers, every prosecutor, and the numbers are quite alarming. It's right across the criminal justice system. You will never hear recovered memories mentioned in a Crown Court because it's all kept out of it. In America, one of those authors has written a paper with somebody else, and 9 million people have been affected by false memories. 9 million. Now, I want to be clear what I mean by false memories. So let's not shy away. Real abuse happens, bad things happen, and we should stand up and call it out. But we're talking about a different data set. These are accusers who previously had no cognitive recollection of anything happening to them. So they've gone to therapy, normally for an adult problem, which is usually depression, anxiety, relationship problems, things we all experience, and then they've come out of those counselling sessions. Within 2 or 3 sessions, it's quite striking how quickly it happens, believing all these things happen to them. So in the case of my sister, my family were meant to have committed at least 8 murders. The central definitive allegation of my sister's life was that my mother murdered another baby, sat my sister on top of that baby and set fire to her house, presumably to conceal what she's done. When you check the facts, and particularly when you use birth and death certificates, so there's no grey area here, the truth is this: my sister was born in 1964, according to birth and death certificate. There was another baby who had Down syndrome. She was ill from birth, she had a defective heart. She died of a medical recognised illness within the confines of our local hospital, which was Stepping Hill Hospital in Stockport, Cheshire. And there was a house fire, and it predated her birth as well. So these things are not only false, they're actually impossible, because my sister wasn't alive when they're supposed to have taken place. But that didn't stop her having 20 years psychiatric treatment with the who's who of ritual believers in this country. My family were meant to be the leaders of a satanic cult, were meant to have dug up graves and committed every crime by genocide. And that's all documented in the medical files, and I can speak about it because I have them. I've written a book on it, as some of you know. So false memories filter through the criminal justice system, and people are completely unaware often when they're accused, because you don't know. If somebody says, well, I've just remembered now, even that will be screened out of Crown Court now, that you abused me all these years ago. Previously, I blocked it out. It was too traumatic to remember. Now, how could we apply that to, say, Ukraine or other parts of the world? How can anybody block out those traumatic memories? Trauma is more likely to be remembered than forgotten. That's not controversial, but the courts don't want to go there. Since special measures have been brought in, and a whole host of other changes to the legal system, going back to the 1990s, started with right to remain silent, removed, it can be held against you. The corroboration warning, mandatory corroboration warning, in rape cases has gone. Police officers allowed to sit on juries. I could go on, that's a separate talk in itself. But false memories, we all have them. It's endemic, it's worldwide. I've read a paper recently on Italy, and what is going on in Italy is scary, where EMDR, eye movement desensitization therapy, which is really a form of hypnosis, there's no evidence whatsoever, and it has been reviewed, that it has any benefits at all. It's now the standard go-to treatment in the NHS, and I looked at my local hospital when my sister was given psychiatric input years ago, and they're doing it now, EMDR. My sister went to her doctors with a headache. That's where we started. When they couldn't find a cause of her headache, she was referred on to psychology. And there they decided, after a couple of sessions, that, quotes, she'd been emotionally, physically and sexually abused from birth. Carol said she couldn't remember any of this, but the person who took the notes said further information will be revealed in due course. Now, there's only two people in that room. If she's saying she can't remember it, who's actually saying it? Later on in the files, it says her recovered memories, the abuse started when she was aged 2 and 3, but she didn't recall them until in her early 20s. It's impossible. The idea is daft, but it's captured popular credence. It makes a better story than we've got, where we turn around and we say, these allegations aren't true. This has gone into popular fiction, into books, people being washed up on beaches with what is actually a traumatic brain injury, which is something entirely different. And it's permeated our culture, and people are completely unaware of it. I'll finish on one thing which I'm fond of saying, and I'm sorry if you've heard me say it before. The approach has got to be ABC. Accept nothing, believe no one, and challenge everything. Thank you.
Next speaker was unexpectedly called upon. William Merritt, a former detective from New Zealand and author of the book on Rolf Harris, agreed to speak impromptu. Here is what he said.
Is he here still? William Merritt? Hello? Would you like to say a few words?
I didn't come prepared to say anything at all. Last year I was contacted by Liverpool and asked if I'd go up there, and I replied and said, well, because I tried to be independent, I didn't think it was appropriate for me to join a protest, and I've never been in a protest all my life. However, things have, is that right? Right. Things have changed so much, and we're seeing so many falsely accused. I think we've now handled 40 or 50, not just people like Brian, of course, which was very, very traumatic for us. You give your life to it, and it does affect you, and you feel for them. Plus also a number of celebrities. One that's just turned up here, Mr. Jonathan King. Rolf Harris was one, and I was just asked briefly to bring up about Rolf Harris. The reason we wrote the book was because we put so much work into it, and we really did. It was hard. And we found that it was a totally biased police investigation, which really upset me because I'm an ex-police officer, detective from New Zealand, and I just could not believe how bad it was. And I spoke to one guy who helped me, who was detective superintendent in charge of the intelligence section of the Hampshire Police. Unfortunately, Doug Quaid has since passed on. And Doug read the evidence against Rolf Harris, and he said to me, why was it even brought in the first place? So it was about a year on, he was already in jail, but they asked us to have a look at the Wendy Rocha case, which was the alleged 8-year-old she was, and that's what got us started. And of course then he had 8 more charges, plus a civil case. So we got a team, Mike Kelly was involved, standing over here, a team behind us, and everywhere we went, we found that the police were so selective in the evidence they got, and they totally ignored any evidence that showed he was not guilty. And in fact, the evidence they did get was so small that there wasn't any evidence at all. But we had they had an amazing performance put on by the Crown prosecutor, who was Sasha Wass, and she convinced the jury that he was a Jekyll and Hyde character, and that you shouldn't believe him. We had the judge in the first trial reminded the jury, I think it was something like 57 times, about the cross evidential rule. In other words, if you believed one, you could believe it for the rest. And at the end of that, he then said, and if you believe the 8-year-old, remember she was 54, 55, if you believe that she's telling the truth, of which I have no doubt she is, then you will convict him. So, of course, the jury at that stage, why wouldn't they convict him? But when we had the 8 more cases, and we were involved at the start, and of course all 8 were found not guilty. The civil case, we showed they had no grounds, and we overturned the appeal on the 8-year-old, Wendy Rocha. They never gave him a retrial, which they should have, and unfortunately he passed on. But what I put in, the reason I wrote the book is the work that we put in. I just wanted people to know what does go in, what the police should have done. And when I was a young detective constable, if I'd done an investigation that I had not looked at both sides, I'd have been lucky to even be walking the beat. I'd have been kicked all the way down the road because my detective inspector would have looked at this and said, well, why didn't you get both sides? So in short, all I'll say is this, that the jury system, yes, a lot of people say it is a little bit antiquated now. Is it being tried by your peers? In a lot of cases, no. But the jury can only decide on the evidence that's presented. And the people that are responsible for presenting the evidence are the police and the Crown Prosecution Unit. And if they do not present all the evidence, you're not going to get a proper decision by the jury. And that's what they need to reform. They keep talking about reforming the police. Well, the police need to be reformed. As we know, not a week goes by without another policeman being charged or convicted of sometimes heinous crimes. But what they need to do, and what I wanted to bring out in the book, they need to look at the other side, because there are two sides to each story. And that's what my mum used to tell me when I was a little kid. She used to call me Bertie. She used to say, Bertie, there are two sides to every story, and that is true.
Sean Parker from Empowering the Innocent, an organisation founded in 2019 by Dr. Michael Norton, a leading scholar on wrongful convictions from University of Bristol Law School, also made a brief contribution to the event.
I'm Sean Parker. I'm the ex-guy for FASO, the falsely accused support organisation with Margaret, and I'm also right-hand man to Dr. Michael Norton at University of Bristol. If he doesn't mind right-hand man, I don't mind. Hi, Michael. He's just gone back from holiday, which is why he's not here. Everybody says quite a lot of the time, things aren't getting better. Why aren't things getting better? It's an understandable feeling when you care about your husband, your son, your friend, your wife. There are women in this boat, and it's not all sex allegations. Lucy Letby, right now, very, very hot. And whatever you might feel about her right now, and it's live, though innocent, we're allowed to talk about it, you know, and everybody recognises the problems that are being reported on now from lots of cases all around us, you know. So, but it's not just about Lucy. There's Andy Malkinson, Brian Buckle, apparently, some guy I've heard about, who was here today, and a wonderful speech he gave. It goes back and back, and there's a certain pattern behind the system. And I never personally go for the false accuser, though they exist, as everybody knows, as an epidemic. It's about the systems that are supporting them. And that includes Keir Starmer, who's been elected this year, who did, as far as we're concerned, invert the principle of innocent till proven guilty. And that is a massive problem for the country. It's something that we all know. Many of the country don't care about the believe the victim thing, but they will increasingly as his work continues. I wasn't going to plan to speak today. I have much more that I've written about. Go to ETI, Empowering the Innocent site, Dr. Michael's site. He got published in The Spectator last week. We try and do things on a high level. We work with fact really closely. I'm the centre point amongst all these people, if I can, try to give information and you know, let people know the right thing. But fantastic for organising it, Sheila and everybody else. And next person, please. Thank you.
Finally, singer and record producer Jonathan King also made an impromptu contribution at the peaceful event.
One thing that we've tended to forget here is it's actually a great day for false accusers. Now, false accusers may not know this or may not have noticed this, but as has been mentioned by several speakers, some years ago the Director of Public Prosecutions was a man called Keir Starmer, and he brought in this rule that you will be believed. The police have to believe everyone, even if they are lying. Well, of course, now he's Prime Minister. False accusers have a fantastic opportunity. All they need do is to go in and make an accusation against Sir Keir Starmer, now Prime Minister of this country, and basically the police have to arrest him and question him, and the accuser, be they genuine or false, gets about £1 million. Now, I know that's not a lot of money. I have to tell you, there are a few people out there, and we've bumped into quite a few of them, who are delighted to have £1 million, please, just for making a little lie. Here's £1 million. Where from? Oh, the Sun will pay it, the Mail will pay it, the Sunday Times will pay it, because then it becomes a great story, which is all the media care about. So I just thought we should mention, if you're a false accuser out there and you fancy making £1 million, okay, it's only the first one that'll make £1 million, but don't worry if you're the 90th or the 114th who jump onto the bandwagon, you'll make like 10 or 20 grand, you know, why not? Well, it's going to happen unless the current Prime Minister does something and sorts out this unbelievable mess, the judicial system, which is so broken. We've now got the Lucy Letby thing. I don't know whether she's innocent or guilty. I don't actually care whether she's innocent or guilty. All I do know is that the trial was clearly a farce and should not have taken place the way it was. I'm not saying free Lucy Letby, I'm saying correct the trial system. It's broken. Andrew Malkinson, the trial system was broken. The post office scandal, the system was broken. And I tell you who really broke that, by the way. Think of all those defence lawyers that the post office submasters had. Hundreds of them. All of them went to court. All of them put their case forward. All of them failed. Hundreds of sub-post officers were slammed into jail. And now they've all been found innocent or released. The only people that nobody blames is the defence lawyers, who should be in prison themselves. It's about time somebody woke up. Why don't the media wake up and do this? Well, it's not a great story, but I think it is a great story, and I think any media person around here ought to actually get onto that immediately. Anyway, there we go. That's all I wanted to say.
Sheila Harmon, one of the organisers, thanked all participants and speakers at the end.
Thank you very much for coming and supporting it.
I hope this peaceful event has inspired many of you to take a closer look at the serious issue of false accusations. The problem often stems from flawed and biased investigations that are skewed in favour of one side. These investigations frequently fail to pursue necessary efforts to uncover the full truth, and in many cases they suppress or ignore crucial exculpatory evidence that could prove innocence. By doing so, they undermine the fairness of the legal process, giving undue weight to one party's version of events, disrupting the delicate balance of justice that has long upheld the presumption of innocence. This is further complicated by the growing believe the victim approach, which, although well-intentioned, risks distorting the foundational principle of justice that one is presumed innocent until proven guilty. A complainant cannot be considered a victim until there is sufficient proof demonstrated through a fair trial and a conviction is secured. Automatically labelling a complainant as a victim before such evidence has been established undermines the due process that protects both the accused and the society as a whole. In many ways, this shift in focus threatens to erode the very core of our justice system, where fairness, balance, and the presumption of innocence should prevail. This was more than just a one-day event. It reflects the tireless work of the organizations involved, who dedicate themselves year-round to making the world a better place, supporting those who have fallen victim of a flawed criminal justice system. We hope to see you too at next year's International Falsely Accused Day. Let's continue to stand united for justice.